Well, good morning. How are you all today? It's a beautiful morning here. I hope it is where you are. I hope you're having a great morning. I am. I just got back from picking a few tomatoes. I have to go back out. I just took a small bowl and I didn't realize how many there were. You want to see some pretty tomatoes? There we go. I'll go back after I'm done with this. There's a whole bunch more out there. I have to take a sack and get the rest of them because they are ready. They are ready. People ask me, I don't grow a lot of the bigger ones, beefsteak and things like that, because I think I get just as much, if not more, yield from the smaller ones per plant. And I just think the taste of these is better. And I really, really like them. I let them vine ripen, as you can see. I don't bring them in early and false ripen them. People have asked me what do I use for pest control and what do I use for fertilizer. I really don't use anything for pest control. Occasionally, when I've had to in the past, I'll use DE, diatomaceous earth. I haven't had to use any this year. And for fertilizer, I just use chicken droppings. And it just works like a dream. I mean, you can't get much better than that. Somebody asked, and I wrote it down in my Stonemont notebook. By the way, I should welcome everybody. Welcome everybody who's joining this new channel, the Stonemont channel. It's great to have you here. I've really been looking forward to having this where I can just sit down and talk to you about the things about the Stonemont world, the Stonemont community, the characters, what's going on in it, how I feel about things, how I write things, all that kind of stuff. And so a special welcome to all of you. You're kind of the plank holders on this who came in at the beginning, and a special welcome to those of you who have already joined on the Patreon channel over there so that you can hear the audible, my reading of the Reversion. I didn't bring the books out here with me because I was just going to chat with you all, but of the Reversion, and I will be reading through the entire series. Starting with the Reversion, and then the Revival and Renewal and Appeal to Heaven, the Blessings of Freedom, and Hostages to Fortune. And probably by the time I get through there, I will have had the 7th one done, and then I'll just continue with that. The funny thing about that, I find that as I'm reading through this, I'm enjoying it a lot, and I read things that I'd forgotten about. I'd forgotten that I wrote that, or I'd forgotten that somebody did that or said that, or things like this. And so it's really kind of a return to the time. For me, I saw somebody made a comment. Maybe it was over on the Integrated Preparedness Patreon channel. I'm not sure, but he said they said, I don't know whether it was a man or a woman because it was just initials. They said, I'm laying here in the dark listening to you read the Reversion. I've already read the Reversion 3 times, but I'm laying here and it's like listening to an old friend repeat what we did during the day to somebody who hadn't been there. And I thought, what a wonderful way that is to put that. Just what a wonderful way that is. That's what I prize so much about my life in the Stonemont community and all that. We just have such great people. We really do. And I'm not the kind to give compliments just to schmooze people. I'm not schmoozing you. The Stonemont community is just such an exceptional place. And so in that, I had somebody ask that I wrote down in my notebook. They said they got a real kick out of hearing how I write. Number one, how I write my books. I think that's a surprise to everybody when they hear it. But they said I'm really looking forward to hearing, or I'd like to hear about the creative process. So I said, well, yeah, that would be interesting. I said the details that you come up with in your books. And all of this just makes it seem so real. And thank you very much. I mean, obviously that's what I shoot for. But I'd like to know more about the creative process. Well, I'm not sure if I can tell you about the creative process. I can tell you about my creative process. So I'll do my best on that. I should probably tell you a little bit about me. Are you close enough there? Does it look like I'm way off in the... Maybe that's better. Okay. Way off in the distance. I want to look, I want to seem like I'm right here talking to you. A little bit of me, where this came from. I think I flunked every English and creative writing class I ever took. If there was one person that all of my English teachers would have said would never have written a book, never written much of anything, let alone a book, it would be me. I graduated from a very good school, I have to say that. I went to a very good school. But I graduated something like 623rd out of a graduating class of 620, either 5 or 8. So there was either only 5 people dumber than I was, well, not dumber, I'm not dumb, but with worse grades than I had in school. I hated school. I never went to school. The only reason they let me graduate is because they didn't want me hanging around anymore. But I would, I never went. My senior year, I dropped my girlfriend off at school, and then head up to the what was it called? Pancake House? No, it wasn't called the Pancake House. Pancake Inn. So doesn't matter. Some restaurant close by. Eat pancakes, and then I'd go over and spend the rest of the day at the pool hall and shoot pool until it was time to pick up my girlfriend from school. That was my high school career. I couldn't believe they let me graduate. I won't take you through the whole thing of how I ended up being in law enforcement. That was another huge surprise. Of everybody that is, if there's anybody that should never have been a cop, it would have been Smith, right? Well, life takes you in funny directions. That's really where I learned to write. Now, I knew that I enjoyed writing short stories and things like that when I was younger, but I hated doing things when I had to do them, I hated sitting down and doing an assignment, because to me that meant that somebody else was in charge and in control of my life and my time, and I can't stand that. That's why I never joined the service. I've always wanted to do things my way, and in law enforcement I was able to do it my way. I was able to do what I wanted to do, and I stayed within the parameters of what they did, but it allowed me to do what I wanted to do. So anyway, I learned really the basics of writing in the police academy, who, what, when, where, what, why, whatever those things are. I know that as a writer I should have those on the tip of my tongue, but I don't think they're that important. If you write properly, you're going to get all those in there. So when I started, through the years, I have taught a great number of things. I've taught martial arts, I've taught preparedness, I've taught physical training, I have taught any number of things. And when you teach, I speak, I talk a lot, and you develop, whether you try to or not, and if you're going to be successful at it at all, you have to develop the ability, to frame what you're going to say in a way that is going to be understood by a reasonable person, right? You kind of package it, you know how to start, you know how to introduce your subject, you know how to flesh out the subject, you know how to bring it to a conclusion, so that hopefully whatever you're trying to talk about, whatever you're trying to teach, is going to make sense, and the people, hearing it, learning from it, will pick it up. So I suppose that I would throw that into the mix as well. Well, when the idea came, to start writing the first book, which was not, if you read the first one, or if you watched the first one, it wasn't my intention to write a book at all. I was just going to write a little short story and print it out on some 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper, and when everybody asked me for advice about what to do if everything fell apart, I'd say, here's 10 or 20 pages that and a little story that I think it'll get you started. Well, as I get into it, I really had fun. I really started to enjoy myself writing, even about the very first scene where Jim is at Joe's Kansas City barbecue restaurant, and everything comes down. And I found that as I was fleshing out that scene, it was very interesting to me, and I enjoyed it. And so here is where my creative process comes in. Now, maybe I should back up a little bit and say that my creative process is obviously different than many of the great writers in the world. Probably if I did what they did, I could write more books. But, I've watched interviews by everybody from Stephen King, who I can't stand, to, what is his name? I can't even remember his name. It's been so long since I read other people's books, the names don't come to me. S.M. Sterling, I mentioned him the other day when I read his book, Dies the Fire. And so many of these authors say, because people ask them, how do you write? They say, I get up every morning, I go to my writing place, and I write my goal. And it could be a page, it could be 3 pages, it could be 1,000 words, 3,000 words, and then that's it. And then I know that by keeping on schedule like that, I'll be able to have a book out every however many months or year or whatever like that. I can't do that. I've tried. People asked me a long time ago whether, and this is when I put out a martial arts magazine, whether I thought writing was an art or a craft. And it made me think about it. And my answer was, it depends on the kind of writing. If you're doing technical writing, like a police report, and in many cases an article for a magazine, I'd write more. You will find that there's simply a format. And what you do is you fill in different information for different situations into pretty much the same format. That's the craft. The art part of it is the creativity part. That's the part where you start to go into all those little creases and crevices in your brain and try to create a world that other people will understand and enjoy being in. Or maybe sometimes not enjoy being in, but it's still they're a part of the story. And so I don't really wish that I could do it like the others. I could write more books if I did. But there are days, there are weeks, there's sometimes a month that goes by that I don't write. It's just I have a lot of other things going on in my life that are very interesting to me. Other businesses that I run. I do this, I make the videos. I keep up with people on that. I've got 3 kids. I've got a wife, all of whom I love being with. My perfect day is to spend my time with my family. And so I write usually when they're not here. And now that we're back in the school year, I'll probably be cranking out more than I did during the summertime. But it has to come to me. And then sometimes all of a sudden something will come, and man, I will. It's just pouring out of my brain. I can barely. How I do it, one finger at a time on this phone, doot, 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 right? And I can barely keep up with it. But it just keeps coming and coming. There's days that I can write for 8 hours. But it's just coming to me. And the reason that it comes to me is because of the central question that I ask myself. What next? That's what it's all about. What next? When we go back into fleshing out a scene, for instance, like the scene at Joe's Barbecue, or the scenes where Jim is riding home on that beat up bicycle to get back to Stonemont. Everything's turned off. I think, I don't want to just say, he rode, it took him 3 hours to get home. Well, in order for you to be there, you the reader to be there, you have to be on that journey with him. What was it like? Yeah, I put in there, his legs were burning, his lungs were burning. He was disgusted with himself for being out of shape. What did he see along the way? He saw people, and you can't, I don't want to just say, well, he saw people. Well, what were the people doing? Some just stared at him, some waved. What were the thoughts that he had when he saw those people? Well, he was sad that many of them he knew would be dead in a few months. He felt in himself that he would like to stop and warn them about what's happening, but he knew that most of them wouldn't believe him, and it would hold him up from getting home to his family where he needed to be, because that was his number one responsibility. So in every scene that I write, 2 questions. What else? Meaning, like in the scene, here's what's going on, but what else? What were they thinking? What were they seeing? What were they experiencing? What were they wondering about? What were they, whatever. And what next? And so I'm very rarely, now occasionally I will hit that point that, and some might call it a writer's block, I don't know. But it's just not coming to me what should come next. Like after the close of one chapter, if you've read my books, you know that I have quite a bit going on in a book, right? I will have 5 or 6 different scenarios going on in 5 or 6 different areas of the country. And it gets a little tough to keep them all, straight. But, and many times I'll have to go back and I say, it'll come to me, okay, now I want to get back to South Carolina for a chapter and kind of bring what's going on there. Or I want to get back to Texas and the Rangers down there. Or I want to get back to the Ozarks, or I want to get back to the tribes coming down from Minnesota. Of course, the main thing is always Stonemont. But because of what's happened through the story, Stonemont has made these contacts around the country, and so they are of interest to the central story. And as I have an idea what's going to happen in the next, in the 7th book, the 8th book, the 9th book, the 10th book. How many books, Steve? I don't know. I really don't know. I was surprised that there was going to be a 2nd book, and then I thought for sure that the 3rd book would take care of it. And then I said, well, maybe 5, and now we're at 7, and I don't see the end to it, because life is interesting, people are interesting. And those of you who read the Stonemont series, you know that you get interested in the people, you get interested in the characters, don't you? You get interested in the situations. How do situations evolve? How do they happen? How do people handle it? And you like the characters. So, at what point do I stop that? I don't know. It's still interesting to me. As long as it's still interesting to you, I'll keep going. I do have a couple of other books that I'm working on as well. Did I finish my thought? I'll say, if I'm going to say, okay, it's time to throw in Texas, well, then I will go back and reread the last chapter that I did about Texas, so that, it seems, I don't want to miss it. And it's easy to miss something or say something a little bit different. You don't want to do that. For the continuity of the story, I want everything to flow evenly. So as I said, sometimes there will be a long period of time that just nothing is coming, and I've learned not to force it. One time in one of the first couple of books, I tried to I think it was the beginning of the 2nd book, matter of fact, and I started, it just wasn't coming to me, and so I forced myself. And I said, okay, well, I got to get down here because people are wanting the 2nd book, and I got to get going on this. And so I just plowed right through, and I started writing stuff. Well, I got about, 5 or 6 chapters into the book, which is going to be, anywhere from 35 to 50 pages. And it just wasn't going. And I said, I just don't like this. And all of a sudden, it came to me, it was a revelation, how the book should have started. Now, it killed me to trash all of those first 5 or 6 chapters. It killed me. I didn't want to, I fought against it. But I did. And as a result, I think it came out with a much better story, a much better product that I was very happy with, and seemed like everybody else was too. So, I'm not one of those craft writers. I'm more a creative writer, but I also can't force my creativity. It's got to flow. If it's not flowing, it's just not worth writing as far as I'm concerned. Now I'm in a section right now in the 7th book where now we have, how do I put this? Well, we have several things going on, but I can't even tell you, but I'm really into it, and it is really exciting me. And there will be times when I said, when I fill in all the cracks, right? I mean, you want to know if you're sitting there with some people eating, what does it look like around you? What is the food? Who's there? Okay, and very often I will use the characters to express, to explain a situation. I'll have one character observe instead of just saying, and they sat in a large room that was wood, and I'll have a character express why I really like the way the walls were constructed here. How did you do that? So you get the picture with some filling. Okay, I don't like dry description. I don't like dry explanation because life isn't dry. And it all comes down to this, I think. Some people are more observant than others. I don't know whether it's my law enforcement background or it's just the way I was, or especially undercover, or teaching people for so many years. I am ultra observant, and I even wrote about this when I wrote about micro expressions in one of the books, and I see the small things. The small things are what make the big things make sense. Does that make sense? The small things describe and explain the big things. Anyway, that's my opinion. And so that's what I try to do. I want my readers, I want you all, to have an understanding. It's like these tomatoes here. I don't want to just write, okay, and you put a bowl of tomatoes on the table, I want to say the bowl of tomatoes he put on the table were bursting with color and the promise of flavor, or whatever it is, whatever. That was not a sentence worthy of a book, but you understand what I mean. I want you to get the idea. I want you to be able to picture, not that just he put a bowl of tomatoes on the plate, but I want you to see that bowl. And I might even add, he put it in an old bowl that he got from his mother. It was one of the old types of bowls, and it was one of his favorite bowls because it brought back such memories from his younger days. That's true. I guess maybe I should add here, depending on how much time I've got, because that was a good segue to something else. Maybe something. My characters. Most of my characters, maybe all, I don't know. I'd have to really go through it to make sure, are based on people I know. Obviously, you know that Jim is based on me. You read Jim, you're seeing my personality. Okay? Much more than just watching me on videos, because, in a video, even though you think you're seeing somebody for what they are, it's one-dimensional. Sure, you can hear my voice, you can hear all this kind of stuff, but when I make a video, although I do express my opinions, you're not seeing the flow of life, my interaction with other people. You're hearing me talk about what I think about this or that or the other thing, right? Just like with any YouTube person. But in the books, yeah, you are seeing my personality. Kelly. Yeah, Kelly is based after Kelly. We joke around a lot. We have worked together since we got married, which we're coming up on our 20th anniversary. And we have worked together on everything ever since that time. Somebody asked Kelly years ago, she told me, they said, God, don't you get tired of each other? And Kelly just laughed and said, we could dig ditches together and still have fun. And that's the truth. We joke around together. We love each other. We know each other. We're both hard heads. We will both tease occasionally and tease back. Even though we're very serious people, we tend not to tease with the outside world, but we'll tease with each other. We're serious with the rest of the world, but we'll poke each other. My kids, Aiden, Brody, and Morgan, they're based on them. Now, the funny thing is, they're so much older now than when I wrote the reversion. When I'm reading the reversion, I'm going, oh man, I remember that. And should I put in, I don't know, maybe I will. Maybe I'll do that on another one. But pretty much all of the character of Mike was based on my good friend Mark, who's a paramedic. He's our top medical guy in our group. A great gun guy. Okay, he was a special operations medic. My Christian was based on a nephew of mine. There are other characters later in the series that are based on and named for other nephews of mine. There's a character named after my sister. All these things, whether they're good people. The judge was based on a very good friend of mine who was a lawyer, and a little bit on my own lawyer. And on down the line. I mean, I can name everybody. When I want a character, chances are I've known somebody who had the character traits that I want. So I picture them in my mind, and then I just insert them into the book, and I go, okay, what would she say? Yeah, what would she say? And as a result, I haven't had to really make up characters. I've simply fitted people that I know into the character, and they pretty much tell me what I'll let them run with it. Okay, what would she say next? What would he do next? And it just writes itself. I used to think that it was weird when I would hear authors say, sometimes characters surprise me with what they do, and I thought, well, how could that be? I mean, you write them, you create them. Well, I understand now. Sometimes characters, because people are complex, right? If you try to write a character as simplistic, it's not going to be real. It's not going to be real. It's because people aren't simplistic. Whatever a person is like, there are reasons that they're like that. It's their life. And sometimes they can be very different in different ways. And I think that's what's fascinating about it. And I think that's what brings interest in a lot of my characters. I think that's why a lot of people like them. So I think I'd better wrap this up. I know there were so many more directions I could go with this. I'll jot down some notes in my notebook about what to put in the next one. But I hope that answered the question on the creative process, about kind of how I come at things, about how character development and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go back out and pick some more tomatoes, and then I'm going to make a couple more videos for the other channels. And then I have writing. I'm going to sit down and write on book number 7. I hope you all have a good day. Write down in the comments any questions you have, or if it's not questions, you just want to make a comment. I love your comments. I'm really looking forward to seeing this channel grow, because this is really what I love. And thank you all for being here. So you have a great day, and I will talk to you in the next day or so. Bye-bye.